Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Master Random, the podcast. Before I get into the sponsorship, I want to tell you about episode 200. If you are interested in coming to the live show for episode 200, DM me on any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I can give you more details on how you can join us for the very first live show for the podcast. And yeah, that's it. It's going to be a great time. So I hope you do decide to come. Don't forget to DM me and I'll give you all the details. Second, don't forget to rate the podcast. If you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app, you go to the main page, scroll all the way down, and you will be able to rate the podcast and rate it anything you like. But just, the ratings help the podcast be seen in different areas of the podcast world, especially within the Apple Podcast app. And of course, if you're able to rate and review on other platforms, please, by all means, helps in every single way. And now to the sponsorship. This episode is brought to you by Mortuary. They are a small family-owned and operated mortuary that has been serving this local island community for over 47 years to be exact. They have been providing the top-of-the-line funeral and cremation services during a time when it's absolutely needed the most. For more information on services, both cremation, funeral, and sea burial, and pre-need plans. Pre-need plans are plans that take the burden off of your family in the time of your untimely death. And it gives them time to grieve while all the important information is taken care of by you while you're still walking this planet Earth. For more information, contact Addis Mortuary at 477-1311 or visit the mortuary on South Route 4, Sinahanya. Right after you pass the gas stations headed down south on Route 4 towards Ordit, go down the hill. At the bottom of the hill on the left-hand side, you cannot miss the 2-story, 3-story building, which is Addis Mortuary. They are big enough to serve, yet small enough to care. My next guest now is Ryan Shook. It's been a while since he's been on the show. Episode 61. It's about 2 or 3 years ago. He was the last on the show, and we've seen each other in passing, and I've been to a bunch of his gigs, and yeah, why not have him on the podcast, right? He's incredibly smart. He's incredibly talented. His insight into audio and music is very wide ranged. And if you want to get educated, this is the podcast. There's educated in audio. This is the podcast you want to listen to. He's super smart. We didn't only stick with audio. We started getting a little deeper above the knee in our conversation. And honestly, we weren't even done talking. I had to go somewhere, and we're going to continue this off in a future date, a nearer future date than 2 to 3 years. So let me not bore you with the pre-roll stuff, but let's just get to it. My friend Ryan Shook on the podcast, Master Random. Check it out. Good? And we're on.
I'm ready.
Welcome to the show. It's a little different from the last time you were here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
A little bit nervous.
Why?
3 cameras. 3 screens.
Yeah.
SM7Bs. Actually, I'm not nervous about that. I'm pretty happy about that.
Dude, these have made the world of a difference in the podcast. I was using those AT 2020, those that Matt is using, and it was just picking up everything, dude.
I remember we had someone mowing the lawn outside.
Yeah,
We had to like stop for a sec.
yeah.
We held up.
No, I think it was a guy on the motorcycle. It was a dude on a motorcycle.
Could have been both, man. But
yeah. So as things have evolved with the show, it's like I'm starting to audio's become a little bit more important to me.
Yeah.
In the respect of needing to sound good.
Yeah.
And Teddy Solis even came, and Ted. I think Teddy's name always comes up every episode we talk about audio because he came in. And he's just like, "Hey, man,
get yourself some of these.
Yeah. And, adjust this a little bit. You know,
treat yourself, man." Is Teddy the one that does audio for the motion picture?
Yeah, for Sony now.
Man, I really wanted to go to his workshop. I don't know what was going on that day, but I missed it. I heard just like good things about it. I really, really wanted to attend that.
Yeah, he did the audio for the museum.
Yeah.
Right, that sort of like interactive space that you walk into.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, I mean, with all the upgrades, it's been nice to be able to hear the podcast sound better.
So you have a full episode with him, with Teddy?
Yeah.
I have to listen to that one. I haven't listened to that one.
He's a genius in his own right. Yeah. So, and you've been messing around with a lot of audio lately, from playing in the bands and laying down tracks.
Yeah. Matala was supposed to release something this month. We had been working on that for quite a while, but we're gonna postpone it a month. We're just waiting for some sick ass art to come in by Alexis Zirit,
Same guy that did
who did this sticker,
right?
And we're just waiting on that, and then we'll set a date to release it.
This is the cover art for your Los Ladrones show, yeah?
Yeah, so we're having him do some new art, and if I'm just gonna say a couple things about him. If people don't know who he is, he does the art for Space Riders, which is like a comic out of Black Mask Studios, and he's just like one of my favorite artists because he's got this crazy psychedelic style, and it reminds me of like old comics from the 70s.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wore the shirt a few times, like while I was in the States, brought a few shirts, but I wore it. And when, maybe like a few times that I went out, people were like, "Dude, nice shirt, man."
Yeah. That's dope.
Yeah, man. And it is visually striking.
Yeah.
And it's, so you guys are just waiting for artwork to come out so all the music's done.
Well, we were gonna not all the music. We were gonna release a single by the end of the month, and so we're I don't even know how to
take your time. Take your time.
It's all these cameras. I'm under pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. They disappear after a while.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. No, like I just think like you should release, or you should announce your release, and then maybe allow for a couple months of anticipation for that release. And we're gonna come out with a whole like EP, and the plan was to have the EP come out by the end of October, and have this single come out like by the end of this month in anticipation for that.
Yeah.
But I also want some anticipation for that single too. And it would be just good to have that art like ahead of time, and just put that out there and say, hey, it's coming. So hopefully by the time people are listening to this podcast, we'll have the art in our hands. And there's also a couple other things that have to happen, like mastering. We work a lot with Cauliflower Audio, which is based in New Jersey. I've had working relationship with this guy in Cauliflower. He's the owner of Cauliflower. His name is Adam Boos. Shout out to Adam Boos, who we've worked with them ever since like Resurface era Matala.
Mm-hmm.
And I've encouraged anyone that I've produced or mixed for to go to him for the mastering part.
How did you find him?
Okay, that's a pretty cool story. So after we toured in Philippines, we saw some of those artists have like this really cool colored vinyl and different stuff. And that's
if you haven't seen it, it's that marble, like a marble album. Have you seen it? Have you seen the Resurface album? I think it's over there. I'm pretty sure it's over there.
So there's this artist, Tarsius in Philippines, and we saw theirs, and we were just basically like, man, we want something like that, slightly different hue, maybe more on the blue side, but something like that would be like so fucking dope. So I started messaging those guys, hey man, thinking that maybe pressings would be done in Philippines. Maybe there's something cool going on like that, but they said, nah, we went to New York. And so we're like, shit, okay. So I got to message people in New York and find out what up with that.
What year was this?
This is 2013 for the vinyl. And so yeah, how we met Adam is through I think it's called Well Made Music or Gotta Groove. Mm-hmm. And he was interning at Gotta Groove to do vinyl mastering at the time. And vinyl mastering is, I don't know too much about it, but I do know that it's done by hand. So you're hand lathing something. You're making a metal stamper. So he was like interning there, and he had been doing digital mastering, and he's just a really awesome guy to work with. And they shouted out his name and said, check this guy, Adam. He's a cool guy. He could do all the formats you want to do, because we wanted to do vinyl. We were looking at that. We hadn't released the album yet. We're going vinyl, digital, CD, and we wanted to optimize the tracks for those formats.
Right, because they all they all have to have like a little different sound to them. Is that why? Or?
Yeah, they all have like, actually to me, I don't know if anyone else can tell, but it's like really extremely different character. And it deals with the medium, like, for example, with vinyl, you don't want the low end popping too much. Otherwise the needle, it's like a physical groove, right?
It's kind of, have you ever seen a nano picture of a vinyl?
Looks like
pull up a nano picture, just nano photo of a vinyl.
Looks like a canyon, right?
Yeah.
Like this big ass needle going,
and the needle would ride on it, and that's what sort of plays
the sound.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Interesting.
So that natural sound, I mean, you can't boost the bass too much or make the bass boosted stereo. The needle will jump out of the groove. So there's all these physical, I don't want to say compromises, because vinyl as a medium is very warm and it's really awesome. But I do think it's a misconception that vinyl has more resolution than some digital formats.
Okay.
I would say it has a certain quality that makes it feel like you're listening to something that's more 3D. But if we're talking about resolution, there's digital formats with higher resolution because it doesn't have those physical limitations, right? But maybe those
it can maximize the output of the speaker or the system that
can do anything
going through.
Yeah, digital. But I'm trying to see how I can explain it without getting too out there.
Nerd away, bro.
Yeah. But I don't know. We're going to start talking about like dither and shit.
What is that? What's dither?
Okay, so let's talk about dither. Basically, like,
I don't get this. I don't get these conversations often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is awesome.
Let's go at it. Okay, so if you produce something like, they're making all these really cool digital converters now, right?
Okay.
I mean, you can do these cool podcasts, you can do home studios, and a lot of these technology will brag like, oh, we record 196K, right? The sample rate. And people scratch their head, go, well, what is that? Let's compare it to CD. So a lot of people say CD is superior sound to MP3. CDs are 44.1K.
Right.
And you can record 96K, which is over double on most systems, and 192 or 100, I forget what the number is, but really up there in terms of capabilities right now, and like coupled with affordability, like what you can do in a home studio. Now, what do all these numbers mean? Well, the higher the number, the more the sample rate. So the more high quality of a capture. You can liken it to like a HD image, right?
Okay.
So
So you're getting more crisp tones.
yeah, the more information you get, the more crisp it appears.
Right.
So how does this relate to this term dither? Well, dither means that if you have a system, say like this TV, what if this TV is not HD? So how is that system going to dither down or interpret something that is sampled beyond its capabilities, right? So if you record something super high quality, really high sample rate, how are you going to hear that in the analog format? How are you going to hear it in other digital formats?
To clear up,
like a CD.
To clear up for people who aren't like sound savvy.
Yeah,
the difference
we lost
between
everyone already.
digital and analog. No.
Yeah.
Can you just like briefly just go over the difference between listening something on digital and analog
Versus analog?
Yeah.
Man, analog is like what we're looking at here with the needle, and it's a physical thing happening. And maybe that causes that impression of like, I don't know, we're hearing something that's 3D.
Right.
It's kind of like if you turn down a vinyl, you can still hear the sound of the needle going through the vinyl, right?
Right.
So maybe that's
a good, yeah, sure. And then digital is MP3s, but CDs are still considered analog, right?
CD is a digital format. Vinyl is an analog format. And if you're really
it's like a laser reading CDs now, right?
Yeah.
And it's reading it in the same fashion where there's waves and going around in a circle.
Yeah. You know, and I don't have a direct answer to that, but I will say that a lot of the stuff that we call analog is digital anyway,
right?
You know, but analog has become kind of like a snobby term of like old school cool shit, right?
Yeah.
Like
you just said a Reddit for a Reddit page.
Yeah,
old school cool
shit, man. Neve preamps, man. I guess I can. It's always easy to relate like an auditory thing to other facilities. Like if it were art, right? Or if it were photography, when digital pictures are enlarged beyond their capacity, they start to distort and you'll see squares.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas analog would be like the old school photos where, you know, done in a dark room at a high quality, really clear. And when you blow that up, it never distorts into squares. It becomes dots after a while, but there's no clear delineation or things that are happening that it's like, okay, this is like looking like an abstract art piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the face is all stretched out.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, before we go too far off, dither.
We can stop.
Right.
And so, like, okay, so if a CD resolution is 44.1K, right, which is supposed to be like imitating human hearing, or the bandwidth of human hearing, 20 to 20.
Right.
Wow, man, it's like you learn more when you talk or try to teach stuff, and you discover what you're saying wrong too, like in the middle of it. But basically, like dither down is what happens. Like I'm trying to think of something of value that someone can listen to the podcast. Okay, so for DJs, right?
Okay.
If you're gonna sample something and that resolution is at or lower the rate that you're gonna put out, you're gonna hear the distortion that happens in that music. It's not gonna be as clear. It might be harsh. It might be lacking certain frequencies. And it's kind of like when you don't have the original picture and it doesn't have the integrity of that original file, or you screenshot that original file,
right?
It has less resolution.
Or you send a photo through WhatsApp and it kind of compresses it.
Yeah,
right? So
compression.
It's like, right. So now it's like different.
Yeah.
Because now you can't blow it up because now you've compressed it to send it over so that it can handle that sort of peer-to-peer transfer, right?
Yeah.
At least for WhatsApp pictures.
So, I mean, why should we think about dither? Well, if 44.1K is the resolution from 20 to 20, right? Human hearing. Why would you need to record beyond that? Which is everyone records beyond like 48K, right?
Mm-hmm.
You record up to 96 a lot of times, or 88 is an odd number, but you can do 88.
But for audio, it's typical for it to be 44. And I think for video, it's 48.
Mm-hmm.
When you're mixing audio with video, it's about
Right.
48. Yeah.
Why is that? Is that because of the sample rate of the image? Maybe it has to be a high rate like the video.
Yeah, well, I think of it like synchronization, right?
Right.
So the audio has to sync with the video at some point, and there'll probably be like maybe like it's micro delay in the way the video matches the audio. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have to remove the crispness of the audio to support the video? I might just correct me if I'm wrong, dude. I feel like I'm just mumbling bullshit.
I don't know, but I don't know. No, I'm not gonna pretend to know, but I did write some notes before I got here, and here's a random note that I wrote to myself. Maybe it'll inspire something better to say, but this is a good one that can relate to why invest in good audio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you upgrade these mics?
Right.
And it's because no matter how good the video, and it's a little critique of maybe some local productions that we hear in the theaters. All too often, you hear the local commercial and then you'll hear the commercial from an off-island production.
Right.
And why is it that the off-island production, they're so loud, but they don't hurt? And they sound, it's not only loud, it's not that it's loud and piercing your ear, but it's huge. Those mixes are huge.
Right.
And they're super clear.
Right.
It's like you can hear this harmonic content and this just like...
And it's not overwhelming, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, it can overwhelm your emotions, like when they're doing like Ford truck, and it's like this gargantuan sound of like... And how is that so fucking loud, right? But it doesn't hurt. And then our local commercial comes up and it's super loud and it's like...
Right.
And I wanted to say that, like, you gotta have someone that really knows audio well involved in the production, or well enough to understand that it could make or break your video,
Right.
And this is not just because I do audio production, but I'm saying it's like taste, right?
Well, I mean, you can even hear like it's not even the balance between going from the local production to the off-island production is kind of like super loud, then it kind of drops, and then whoever's probably messing with the mains has to like adjust it just to bring it back to like bearable levels.
Let's rehook these listeners, right? Let's talk about food. It's about taste, right? And taste deals so much with smell. Let's say the video is how you want it to taste,
right?
Is how you want your food to taste. And the audio is smell. And they're so integral. Taste deals so much with smell. If you don't have smell...
Are you reading those actual notes? Are those actual notes?
All these little pointers.
Those are the bullets.
Right? Like if you're going to have something that tastes really complex,
right,
and you want them to actually taste it, it must smell a certain way as well.
Okay.
Because like when we get sick and we lose our sense of smell, we don't lose our sense of taste.
Yeah,
we lose our sense of smell, and then our taste goes away because of that.
Okay.
Because you can still taste basic things, like if it's salty, you can still taste that.
Right.
But where does all that complexity of real taste that makes you want to actually consume and eat the thing, right?
Smell. Right.
So when we're talking about production and video, what makes us want to pay attention versus what loses us? It might be an awesome image, but when the audio goes to shit, we just want to look away. It doesn't matter if the thing looks good if it doesn't sound good.
Right. It's like cringing. It's like closing your eyes. Like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So the sound is like, dude, I'm happy for you. You got these SM7.
Thank you, dude. I feel like these were like holy grails that came in through the mail.
Yeah.
I even like put them on the table, and the light came out of it. I was like, oh, those?
Yeah.
I looked at Matt and was like, oh.
You know, these are like the Michael Jackson mic, right? That's what they call them.
Are they?
Yeah. He technically recorded with the SM7. These are the 7Bs.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what's different at all about it, but it's pretty much the same mic.
Yeah, it's so clean.
Yeah.
And it's so crisp.
Maybe how they produce it. So they just renamed it.
Right.
But it's pretty much the same circuit. Yeah. Sounds the same. Looks the same.
Your knowledge into audio seems to go even further. I mean, further than just like the surface level of what it is to audio. I mean, even down to where you just mentioned the circuit and you like build your own sounds, you build your own pedals. Like what got you into taking that step forward into the audio realm, I guess?
Ooh. Okay, so when I was little, I used to, and little meaning like when I was like fucking 7 or 8, maybe 8, because 8 is real when I really started to play guitar, and practicing along to like old like Metallica stuff, or hearing recordings where they have multiple guitars playing in harmony,
right?
And I wanted to figure out, and I don't have any siblings to play with, right? I was an only child, so I don't have any siblings that I'm playing guitar with. My dad does play guitar, but he's not playing Metallica.
Right.
And I wanted to hear what it sounded like if I was playing harmony to myself. And this is before I have like a sampler pedal or a delay pedal. So what I would do is I would take the old like cassette deck that we had, and I would put in those tapes there. I would press record. It has a built-in mic. I would record myself playing guitar. And then I would take that tape out of like the rhythm track or the first track. I would put it into another tape deck, press play. Then I would live play along the harmony with that cassette. And I would put a new cassette, so it's
and
like
record.
Yeah. So it was like,
so you're tracking yourself.
like ghetto multi-tracking. Yeah.
At 8 years old.
Yeah.
Is this something that was like fostered from, like your parents? Were they into stuff like that, or is this something that you sort of found yourself?
Shout out to my neighbor John Walsh.
I know John.
I don't think I've ever shouted him out before, but that dude was there like at the inception of like me playing music, and really showed me a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like early on, besides listening to my parents' record collection, it was like John Walsh, Leroy Barber, the older brother of John Barber, our local photographer,
right,
surf photography.
Right.
And we used, my dad used
those are John Barber pieces, right?
Yeah. My dad used to take us all surfing, and we lived around the neighborhood, so we would go surfing, we'd play guitar.
Where'd you grow up at?
We'd go skating, Windward Hills.
Okay.
Yeah. And me and John, we would just like mess around and record these like before. It might have been right before Malfunction was a thing, but everyone kind of did some kind of funny radio skit kind of stuff. So when we were younger than 8 years old, we were doing like, we're trying to be funny, record ourselves. So it was like second nature to put a tape in a tape deck and record yourself. So that formed that habit.
Right.
That's how we would play. And so when I was playing guitar, I would record myself, and then do that whole like switcheroo where you take out one tape, play a tape back, put a new tape, and you're playing along with the first tape with a second tape recording you. So that was the beginning of my curiosity about recording. And then flash forward to years later.
Wait, is that considered analog?
Tape? I think, yeah.
So you're like analog recording accidentally by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward
Years later, we're recording with Jason Burkhart and Joey Colaro, and that was when Scotty Silva was our drummer. And I just remember being so fucking stoked listening to Scotty drum and be able to take that CD and put it on and listen to his like killer drum fills. And to put things into perspective, we were in like 8th grade playing like Tool in 7/8, and that wasn't totally our ability. That was like Scotty's ability, and his ability as a awesome musician, like really pushed us to the limit. So a lot of my skill, came from all those people through the years, just being really interested.
Right.
I taught art, and a lot of my former students are like, how do you get good at something? And my answer is always just like, are you interested in it? Like, be interested, keep that, and pay attention. You're going to have a lot of experiences, and if you're going to assimilate it into your skill set, it's like, were you interested? Were you actually interested, and were you paying attention, or is it just something you wish for or hope for?
Right. Yeah.
And so when you enjoy something and you have that interest, you're just going to pay attention, your eyes light up. And so every single, moment, even I think a little bit after that, Jun Slave, Slave Soul, they were doing their recordings. So also Karma released something. So all those bands releasing stuff, and there was like a lively hip hop scene. One of your past episodes for Master Random was with Jed and Oni, and I really enjoyed that episode a lot. Those guys talk so much fucking shit, and it's healthy because that's listening. Guam culture, man. Like, right. You need to be able to talk shit and dish it out and handle it, and those guys can handle it. Not a lot of people can handle the shit that those guys throw at them back, Right.
Have you seen their Twitter? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Their Twitter's crazy.
Who hasn't, And it's working for them, Any kind of press, I guess any kind of press is good press when you're talking about social media, right? Except if it like goes so far like on the police blotter. Fuck, man. What's going on, Guam? I've been seeing too much of friends who, good people like on that police blotter, man. What's going on?
Yeah, and I was thinking the other day too. Remember when the police blotter was just words before?
Yeah.
It was an actual like pictures and mugshots and shit.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, man. I mean,
familiar to the friends.
It's cool to it was cool when it was just like a column on the side, and it's like you go through the police blotter like, who got arrested this weekend? Ooh, damn, that's
I saw my teacher on there. Dude, one time I saw my teacher on there. I was like, what did he do? But where were we?
Yeah, before we get too far away, we'll get into the Guam stuff. We'll get into the Guam stuff.
Yeah.
Recording. People were starting to record, drop albums here. There was a good hip hop scene.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right.
That's where we went off and veered off into social media. Yeah, there was a good hip hop scene, and they recorded a lot.
This is all Guam you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of recordings. I remember going skating with John Walsh and those guys on our street. Donovan Salas, Leroy Barber. We'd go skate around Windward Hills, and they would blast like whatever hip hop thing released locally. And I just remember it sounded legit. And these days I'm going, where is that? And that's something that would be, those things are like archivable. Those things did have influence.
Yeah.
And if we're feeling like they didn't have influence or like nothing was left behind, it's because someone lost those like recordings. And I feel like we need to dig those up again because
someone investigative, forensic.
It might have not have influence on you, but there was some good shit, and it's nice to have known that there was the good shit there and that they were putting that out.
Yeah, honestly, it would be dope to see all that kind of stuff in the museum. Stuff that shaped.
Yeah.
You get old photos from like the 90s and 2000s of like the rock scene and the hip hop scene and the way the subculture has evolved and developed, right? And
another life-changing moment was when they had that I don't know if anyone fucking remembers this, but they had this jazz month, and they used to have jazz month where they had something like that, and it was all about Guam bands, but it was geared more towards like bebop jazz, and they had Pat Paloma and all of them play back when Fried Bananas was still around.
Okay.
And it was full on heavy jazz. Carlos Laguana, Carlos Bordalio, the whole Laguana family throwing down.
Right.
All the jazz musicians just like going to town. Just imagine that at all the public schools, all these jazz and bebop bands were playing. They'd play all the public schools. They would go to the music program, perform there. They set up something at the plaza. They played there. big concert. They threw something at, I think, Hilton, I think. And at that event, they had this big booklet where you can open it up and you saw all the photos of all these local bands, and like they were all matching. They all had these classic Fender amps, Jazzmaster guitars, things everyone like who's into guitar would just totally nerd out and go, damn, Uncle so-and-so had that guitar, the guitar that they always talk about. Boy, I used to have a Gibson Les Paul, but I sold it. Like, and you never believe them. But then you saw that photo, and they all have the same shades, and and
they all have the long hair,
sparkle, and
with the feathered boots.
Yeah, and
that's not jazz. That's disco.
It was insane, man. Yeah, they had disco. Yeah, I don't know. They had everything.
It would be really cool to see something like that for the sort of modern age of music, right?
Yeah. So my question is, if you're listening and you know where that is, them lost hip hop recordings. I know how to get the jazz stuff, but where did all those local homegrown, the badass,
like who? Is there anyone in particular?
I don't know, man. At the time when I was
in high school, it was Savage K is the only one that I know that was really like putting out really cool shit.
There was like
different, super different stuff.
There were kids like in middle school and high school doing like really dope shit. Yeah, but at the time I didn't give a fuck because I was just skating and I listened to like Metallica and I basically said fuck anything else. Like you're a kid, you're so like myopic, your vision,
right.
You're so like just small. And yeah, anything that wasn't like hardcore rock, I wasn't into. Yeah, it had to have distortion.
Right.
And yeah, but these days I'm all about it. Not just hip hop, but the jazz and and I'm just recalling the past because even if you didn't appreciate it then, right? And especially doing like audio engineering, you expand your palette, you work with different people, and even if a lot of those things I didn't appreciate at the time, I still lived through it and I still experienced it at that time.
Right.
They're throwing that event today, the hip hop. Jared's throwing that event.
Oh yeah. The R&B show. Yeah.
Rhythm and Bay, right?
Right.
And it's so weird to see everyone dressed like that now. It's like a reinterpretation, right?
Right. It's like that's the life we live.
Yeah. It's super cool, and we're making ourselves sound fucking old right now, but
we are. No, we're not that old.
But but I remember when everyone actually did dress like that and was listening to that. And although I'm saying when I was like a 9-year-old skater trying to skate, when I was a 9-year-old poser, but I could do ollie, I could gap shit.
Yeah, man, I was really into skating from. I started at 11 years old, and I went till I was about 14 or 15.
Yeah,
and kind of started getting it all away in my senior year in high school, but yeah, I loved it. It was my life, dude.
Same.
That's all I thought about.
I skated,
skating. Dude. I think is that camera going out? Dude, I think it's that battery, bro. Yeah. So I guess it's all right. Just run.
All good.
Just run the 2 cams.
I skated up until I broke my arm. And when I broke my arm, I just started surfing more because I already surfed. And yeah, I think when you're that young, like you just go with the flow.
Yeah, I started bodyboarding when I was sixth grade too.
Yeah.
About 11 years old. And I think
I remember seeing you out quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's where I sort of deviated from skating.
Yeah,
was because I was surfing so much more.
Yeah,
that's where it is. The memory is kicking.
Ding, 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 ding. I always had that feeling like, where do I know Boo from other than everything else? Oh yeah, that's right.
Surfing. Yeah. Out in the water almost every day we can possibly go out. That's what we live for, dude.
Yeah.
Put the board in the try not to leave it in the car too long, air out the car and then And then as soon as fucking school ends, we get into our quick drives and fucking drive down to Marine Lab or drive down to Boat Basin. And those were the two main spots.
And then go to my neighbor's house and have his older brothers blasting like Bone Thugs. Dude, it seemed like all they listened to was like Bone Thugs. What's another 90s? Like Tupac. It's just Bone Thugs, Tupac. Bone Thugs, Tupac. Every day. And then like one random day, they had like Load by Metallica on. And I was like, what the fuck? You guys listen to this too? And then they're like, hey bro, you know how to play Metallica? And dude, back then everyone used to say that. Like if you had a guitar, that was like the beginning of the Guam, like, hey bro, you know how to play Metallica, dude? That used to be the question. You have a guitar, like in the 80s.
What's the song? What's the Metallica song that God damn.
My uncle used to say in the 80s, it was always like, can you play Eruption, right? But, you know, the younger gen was like, could you play Metallica?
What's the one song that it's kind of like open, it's like an open chord. And
I don't know, but it was off. It was off the Black album, right?
Oh my goodness,
Yeah. So close. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I was
Brain farting.
Yeah, my
And then it was drop. Right?
right.
The next gen was acoustic guitar gen, and it was like, you know how to play drop, bro? And meanwhile, John Walsh was playing
No, it's Wise Man. You know how to play Wise Man?
Yeah. That was the gen after. Meanwhile, John and those guys were jamming they were jamming that album, and I remember feeling so like, dude, we're rebels. They were playing Antichrist Superstar by Marilyn Manson, and he would jam that on acoustic guitar. And I just remember going like, what the fuck is this, dude? Like, you know, being like 8 years old, and your like friend who you just finished like skating to the Sublime CD, which just came out then, right? And then he put on like Marilyn Manson like right after, and that album just came out then, and we were just like, what the fuck is this? And Deftones, dude, heavy shit. A lot of hip hop, a lot of metal. And then right after that was the new metal, which kind of made sense because it was like heavy 90s, early 90s hip hop. And then it was like a lot of metal. And then after that was the new metal scene with all that, like Korn, Limp Bizkit.
Right.
Which is basically the way everyone is dressing tonight. So they're not aware of it, but they're dressing like early 2000s. They're not dressing like 90s.
Yeah.
Because 90s was like super like plaid, right? Mm-hmm. What else?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as baggy as like early 2000s took it.
I don't know, man. When I was a kid, baggy clothes and basketball jerseys for me, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they're dressing like that. I guess they're getting something right. What were those jeans that they were just fucking huge, man? There's memes about those jeans now.
Like the parachute jeans, they kind of like come out at the end, like they flare.
Yeah.
And they're called, God, what?
There's one brand though in particular that they just did the most huge ass jeans.
Oh, Bugler?
No. It was kind of like synonymous with like skate culture.
Oh my goodness. Maybe Matt can research that for us while we continue our conversation. Just butt into our conversation when you find it.
Super big ass, baggy ass jeans that you would find in ads in like Trans World and Slap magazine.
Yeah, dude, I was around 11 years old when I started skating, and that's where my real introduction to like rock music, punk rock music, or even just 90s out music, dude. The guy my sister was dating was like a huge influence on. He just break out. He's like, "Hey, boo, just grab my binder back there."
Oh yeah,
and it was like fucking hundred CDs in there. It's just like poof.
It'd be a binder like this big, right?
Right.
It had like 4 CDs.
Right. And just slowly take it out of the sleeve. Yeah,
slowly.
But yeah, that was a huge influence on the way I listened to music. And as sort of, because my sister was more like she liked a lot of hip hop and a lot of rap. But this, I think that introduction for me into that sort of realm was like very pinnacle in the growth of my adolescence into adolescence, right? Because I was still pretty much a kid.
It's all word of mouth before, right?
Yeah.
And radio in the 90s, you heard like I remember there was a lot of like Third Eye Blind, Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. Just go like this.
Rose.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I could feel it, but I couldn't get it.
You don't want to go like this, right?
You licking my lips in front of you like, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that was the one.
Did you find it?
Yeah, we shared.
Oh, okay. Just baggy jeans, baggy ass jeans, bro. Yeah, man, I was into it. I was into the baggy jeans too, even baggy shorts. You know, and I think that was sort of the skater look too, right? It was. I remember everything baggy, big shirt.
There was this skate crew like that always skate in Tumon area, and they would just wear like.
You don't have to turn it on. You just tell us.
Some baggy ass jeans and island print.
Yeah, actually, turn it on. Let's see our options here. Let's see if we're
there. What's that one with the umbrella? Click that one.
Jinko.
That's the one. That's it. Huge, dude. Those pockets are like.
Look at those pockets. Full
you could
screen
fit a person in. You could fit a baby in the pocket in the back of that ass.
Are you showing this? Show this on the. If you could show this to people watching. Never mind. That's good.
You could fit your skateboard in that pocket.
Look at that pocket, dude. That goes from the bottom of the ass to about the middle of the calf.
You put your guitar in there, bro. You could definitely put a uke in there. Like, not even kidding.
I wonder who
put all your CDs in
I wonder who thought this was gonna be like the in thing.
Big ass jeans. I don't know, but they're all wearing it again tonight. Who would have thought? I don't know, but they're all fucking wearing it.
Oh shit,
dude.
We are a nostalgic generation, man. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Maybe every generation's like that, where everyone's like, yeah, I remember we used to do this and do that.
Yeah.
And I remember when this was this and this cost that. But
are we becoming
I feel like
that?
we're extra because it's literally can be right in front of our faces anytime we want.
I remember when Jinko jeans was only now they're selling it at a premium.
My mom used to buy me Jinko jeans at Townhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's I think it's so much more these days because we're so exposed to it all the time. How many times do you get like nostalgic pictures like come through your social media, your Facebook, your Instagram? I mean, they have pages dedicated to 90s nostalgia. You don't see 50s nostalgia.
And then it
right?
You
don't see 60s nostalgia Instagram page. It's more like vintage and antique photos. But nostalgia is like 80s and 90s. That's where everyone's like, whoa. Because I think that's where everything started like really taking a turn, at least with technology and stuff like that. Now just the fact that we can pull up Jinko jeans on the fly and talk about it.
Maybe it deals something with the users of that technology are that age of like where they're finally old enough. Like us, we're finally old enough where the things when we were kids are old enough to be nostalgic things. Like I remember talking to John Walsh going on the way to surfing Talafofo and going him telling me, hey, so like one day this song by No Doubt, like what was playing like Sunday morning, one day this song is gonna be like an old song, huh? Like it's gonna be old, right? And just like tripping out on that thought, going, oh. And now here we are going, man, I wish like Gwen Stefani was like playing ska again,
right?
And looking at those like nostalgic photos of like that era,
right?
Yeah, I bet there's a picture of like No Doubt wearing something that looks like Jinko jeans and.
Yeah, I think one of their albums is exactly that. I think she wore Jinko jeans.
Yeah, dude.
We went way off.
What a trip.
Yeah. So I guess with the evolution of where everything sort of like stemmed from was me asking you how you got so interested in like the intricacies of music, right? The smaller pieces of music where you started, you know, messing around with sound, like literally creating sound, right? With the pedals that you build and stuff like that. So when did that all start coming around for you?
It always deals with interest, right? So if I have an interest and I feel like there's a want or a need, like the want or the need could be delivering something that's quality. You know, I need it to be this kind of quality. I want it to sound similar to this, right?
So you kind of go in with like knowing what sound you want to produce.
Yeah, the quality of it, and knowing that what we were doing was not good enough, you know? And sure, like a lot of production is your skill set, but you also learn specific types of skill sets working with good analog gear. There's some people who are freaks of nature who are virtuosic at their instruments, you know, and you could give them something with one string and they'll sound like Van Halen, you know. But you know, I'm not delusional. I need better tech. And so if I can't afford it and I was a kid, right? Well, what can I do? Who can I go to? What's affordable? What could I borrow? Right. So with each step along the way, gosh, where did it start? That's a really good question. We started recording our very first album as Matala as Core, and then we changed our name to Matala when Scotty and John left. And John was still in the band for part of being Matala. So, but everyone's a part of it. You know, everyone that played in the band is a part of all of this.
The evolution it's become today.
If I could summarize it in a short answer, I would just say there was a scene, it was rich, and we all experienced it. And some of us were lucky enough to pay attention and have interest and take away more from those experiences than others at the time who were just into other things, you know?
Right.
But my focus was just like I had a laser focus about it.
So you became objective to the scene while you were in it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, objective in the sense that you were kind of looking at it of what you could need, not the scene, I guess music, right?
At the time, I didn't look at it that way, but I was assimilating all of the skill sets. Now, you know, hindsight is 20/20, so we can look at it in that way.
Right.
But at the time, I was just doing whatever I was interested in.
Okay.
And I didn't forget it, and I was just interested in it.
I see. So, like subconsciously, you were gaining.
It just came.
Some people were gaining a little bit more out of what the scene was providing at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, we recorded our first thing at Marca Musica, and we released that. I just got the stem tracks back from that session, and so I'm looking to remix and remaster. So, you know, a lot of people think we only released one album, but no, we did 2 full albums even before this live EP, and then we're coming out with another EP. And that was in 2007 that we came out with that. And
that's so long ago.
Yeah. That dates us. And that was around the time we opened for like Hoobastank, and we were playing a lot of Rage, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the guitarist in Hoobastank, he was such a cool dude. His name is Dan Estrin. And I just remember him coming out of, like, they had a special band area, you know, lounge set up for Hoobastank at the back. And he came out and watched us when we were playing Chili Peppers. And then when we got off stage before their set, he told me that, like, oh, man, you know, John Frusciante, that's one of my favorite guitarists, man. And to have that that interaction with Dan Estrin, who I had viewed as, you know, he made it, you know. At the time they had, The Reason was like the #1 song on radio. And to have that guy tell me, yo, that song you guys just covered, right? That's my favorite, you know? And geek out over, you know, John Frusciante's playing with this dude.
Yeah.
That was a cool experience.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that? I have no idea. Oh, 2007.
Right.
When we first
Recorded
that.
Right.
So that was the influence, right? Is like the Chili Peppers, faster punk funk shit.
Right.
And yeah, that being a moment. I'm trying to think like what was it about that moment that changed a lot. Well, that was our first major concert with RJ, who's our drummer again now, who's come full circle. We've had a bunch of drummers, right? We've had Freddie Bordalio, Julius Raposa, really talented motherfuckers, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then to go back to RJ and start writing our new material again, it sounds like things have come full circle, and in the best way.
Is he the original drummer?
He was the original like Matala drummer, because we had Scotty in core, and then when we became Matala, it was all RJ and Rob.
Okay.
And they were just like a funk, you know, even though we played like a lot of punk rock and no effects,
Yeah.
the backbeat of RJ and Robert Cagwin was just this really funky ass machine. So anything we would play was really funky.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I look forward to remixing and remastering and re-releasing those old recordings onto digital format, because that's some funky shit that they did. You know, Rob was heavy digging on not just the Chili Peppers stuff, but proper funk, bass playing like Jaco Pastorius and like Victor Wooten. And I just downloaded this other song that he used to play all the time called Power, and it is by, who's this bass player? Marcus Miller, man. Marcus Miller. That's some funky shit. So I was tripping out watching Ocus Point at that All Black event, because those guys are like, they're so funny, and their stage presence is
They're
just
young and high energy,
there.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
High
watching
energy.
them at Moistland, and they had just come from playing the All Black, that last All Black
Yeah.
event. And then I was like, dude, it's like 3 a.m. How are these guys like still fucking wild right now?
Yeah.
Dude was just in
Wired, yeah.
just in soccer shorts, it looked like, you know, and I was just
Yeah.
no shoes. I was like, what is going on right now? I was like, how does this guy have so much energy?
How is everyone at Moistland still up? At that
Yeah,
time?
right.
How is everyone
Yeah.
still up?
And I was asking myself, I was like, what am I still doing here?
You're still up watching.
I'm
Hey,
like
man,
in the
these guys have a lot of energy.
I'm like in the sticks of Jigo right now, you know? It's like, holy shit. Damn. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. That was my first Moistland show, actually. Yeah, and I didn't know that was like their 12th one,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like,
Did you know that Little Giants, right? That family,
Uh-huh.
right? They're the neighbor.
hey, you enjoying this episode with Ryan Shook? Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on the Apple Podcast app. If you review it, Maddie B will read your review on the show, and the ratings always help. So, thanks a lot. Back to the episode. Oh.
When I learned that, I'm like, oh God, I'm so sorry. We were that bad at like 4 a.m. 2 years ago. Fucking.
Yeah, man, that was a very, very eye-opening experience to at least the music community, because I've never been a part of the music community.
Yes,
know what I
you
mean?
have.
I have, but like not when I was like young in high school, right?
Mm.
So I didn't get to know any of you guys until we actually like started playing when I came back from college, right?
Yeah,
And it's cool to hear these stories and see how everything sort of like has evolved, and you guys are able to like look back upon this and see the evolution of what music has become here, right?
Yeah. What has it become?
Wait, did we get to why you got into the intricacies of like building your own pedals? Sound, right? Okay, quality.
Being broke. Everyone's, a lot of people say, man, Rye,
I'm just
go to
making
Rye,
sure.
man.
I'm just making sure we covered it.
Go to Rye, man. Borrow from Rye. He has everything, right? But it's like, no. I built this stuff. Like, I built these preamps. I built these pedals because I had that interest and I couldn't afford the real thing. I built this pedal called the Klon Centaur, a clone of the Klon Centaur, because the original Klon Centaur cost like $2K, but the parts are not worth $2K.
Right.
They're just
It's just the name.
It's just
like
capacitors and
Beats
stuff.
headphones.
Yeah.
Headphones.
I mean, there's some secret like sauce that goes into like, I guess, the tolerance of the parts that make up the whole unit, you know?
Okay.
But you can approximate something that sounds pretty much indistinguishable from that original. And if you couldn't, then why are so many people making clones? There's so many brands, Wampler, making the Tumnus,
Yeah.
and so many clones for really cheap.
Is this something you learned off of University of YouTube, or how did you get your interest into electrical engineering pretty much, right? Like learning circuits and learning voltages and the way amps work, right?
So my Nino Mike, who passed away, I was the closest to him on my mom's side. And I still have one of his guitars. It's a Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat. And he always fixed my stuff. So what kept me running all these years? Most kids, your shit breaks and you stop playing guitar, man. But for me, I brought it to Nino Mike and he fixed it. So I had a Mesa breaks down, bring it to Nino Mike. My guitar broke down, bring it to Nino, show up next weekend, it's fixed. And he learned through repairing, I think, Sony TVs. And then he ended up working on bass on some kind of top secret satellite shit. And I don't really know what else.
He's a secret agent, man.
Yeah, man. He had that so he had a awesome skill set, and I learned through interest and observation. It was happening in front of me. I
Kinetic
saw how he
learning,
did it.
right?
Yeah. So, years later, well, I could buy a soldering iron for $20. Let me try that. What else did he use? I'll go back to my Auntie Anne and ask, what is the core that what is the metal that, is it this core? Is it, is a rosin core? Go back to Home Depot, buy that, melt it, put my, maybe my pickups are not working, put it back together. So repairing my guitar for myself after my Nino passed away, it's kind of like a healing thing, right? When you're doing that thing, like I didn't have him around to fix my shit anymore.
Right.
And my dad's not into, fixing electronic stuff. He's kind of like, he's a self-proclaimed technophobe, but he's a good researcher, so I guess I got that skill set from my dad, is just doing my own research. And then through observation, watching my Nino do soldering. So I started to repair guitars. Then I moved into pedals. And then I moved into, after we're recording analog preamps, I said, well, if we can build these pedals, how much more complex is it to build like an analog preamp? And we were talking earlier about what is analog and why would I want an analog preamp versus a digital? Well, it's kind of like the picture thing. If you turn it up or if you enlarge it so much, you get pixels, and pixels don't look nice. They look distorted.
Right.
So for audio, it doesn't sound nice when you distort digital. It really sounds like crap.
Right.
But if you distort analog, that thing just gets fatter and bigger and more aggressive sounding. So a lot of the old 90s hip hop, when they're sampling,
how does it work? Sorry, is it because you're sending more amperage through the circuit that it's making it that you can pull analog audio past its like limits?
It deals with inefficiencies of, people think that analog is higher resolution. Not necessarily. It's lower res in a lot of cases, but it's inefficiencies because you're always recording digital, right? Mm-hmm. Earlier we said, well, most things are digital, even if you call it analog.
Yeah.
So if you're driving an analog preamp into a clean, high headroom digital conversion, you're getting all that analog distortion. It's kind of like a guitar amp. If you turn up a guitar tube amp up louder, it distorts. You know, that's distortion. That's in it. That's technology being inefficient, not efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that sound like? That sounds like Van Halen playing guitar.
Right.
His magical tone came from him almost blowing up his amp. If you did that to something that's digital, it sounds like crap. But if you did it to an old school Marshall, it sounds huge, right?
Right. It's something that you wouldn't even need a pedal for, because you're pushing the amp to that, what the pedal can allow, what the pedal can mimic.
So why would you want analog preamp? Well, imagine your preamp like a Marshall amp. So you mean to tell me that if I'm recording drums and I turn up this thing, the drums are going to sound bigger? Shit, the answer is yes, man. Crank that thing. It'll sound huge. API style preamps, Neve preamps. So yeah, I basically said, okay, so how much research do I have to do to build something like that? And I didn't have to do much research. It stopped at discovering brands that offered certain components in like little kits, you know. Shout out to Cappy. They did like classic audio products of Illinois, and you can basically build your own analog preamp that imitates the old classic API console. And also other things are just getting more affordable, like Warm Audio. You can get that WA70, is it WA73 or WA76? But I got the 2-channel Neve style preamp that sounds really fat. And it's debatable whether it's true to the Neve circuit, but regardless, it sounds fat, man. It sounds good. So yeah, just being interested. What's another cool thing? What's that show with Dave Grohl and he goes to all the classic studios in America? Have you ever seen that show?
No, I haven't.
He did a documentary called Sound City where it's all about the Neve console.
Okay.
But he also did something, maybe it was on Netflix. Sonic Highways, maybe is what it's called.
The show?
Yeah.
You wanna confirm that for him?
Sonic Highways, and they talk about what makes those studios good. What were the weird things? Sonic Highways, yeah. So watching every time some program like that came up, and the way technology is these days is if you watch a couple things like that, they want to feed you that information, right? So you start getting spoon-fed information by the computer, or it's almost like they're reading, you know, they receive your information and you receive ads too, right? Like you'll receive a random musician's friend microphone ad on some other, like maybe you're looking up lyrics and then you have that musician's friend mic.
Right.
Yeah. Or you're looking at porn and you're like, why are they advertising? I just wanted to say that. That didn't actually happen, but a funny convo during my...
Of course I want a Fender.
That guitar is sexy, man.
You want to see sexy guitarists near you?
Yeah. Shit. One funny convo for my information science degree that we had with our professor is she said a lot of these modern algorithms that's why I bring up porn is she said it all started with porn. That they wanted to find what kind of porn
people were looking at
so that they can feed them more shit so that they would subscribe to that. And so those algorithms developed out of that industry, the porn industry.
That makes sense.
And it fed into every other industry on the internet.
Yeah, I think there's like articles that come out on data on which countries look at what porn, so what kind of porn, right?
Thanks to all those horny test subjects that didn't know that they were the guinea pigs for how the internet would act.
Right.
For all businesses and Amazon in years to come.
And social media influencers.
Yeah. So yeah, man, the internet, it just feeds you stuff, and it's like, it's up to you if you want to click it and go, why is that mic costs like 1,600? Do I need something that costs 1,600?
Right.
And then sometimes I'll read something that convinced me and go, yeah, you really want this mic. And then I'll go, could you build a mic like this, you know? And in some cases you could. In other cases you need to buy the diaphragm is the most delicate part of a mic, that there's no way you can make the diaphragm that good yourself, right? Maybe in the future, maybe we'll have maker spaces and you can do what are those machines that do the plastic?
3D printing?
Maybe you can 3D print your own mic in the future.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be dope. Yeah. That would be super dope.
Before we went back into talking about why you got into, you know, the intricacies of the audio, we started talking about the evolution of music and being able to see that evolution. And I don't think we really touched on it the last time we talked on the podcast. Fucking 2 years ago. What are we looking at here? When is the last time you were on? Oh my gosh, I have to go through it. It was episode 61.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that was around 2016. But between then and now, you know, so many people are coming out of the woodworks, of releasing music, dropping music.
It's great.
And local music has just like gone up exponentially.
Yeah.
So I mean,
at least in local support, if not anything else, just the we're talking about like what fostered it, right? Well, one part of that is perseverance of bands. Like for us, for example, there's a lot of times where we could have quit and we didn't, just because when we encountered those hard times, is like, well, is it time to give it up, or do we still love doing this? And if we still love doing this, then we should just keep doing it at whatever level we could. Yeah.
And I say this, and I've said this multiple times on the podcast, is that the rock community is the most passionate and caring about their musicians, like in the community, like to see people that they know and they're still rocking out as if this band has toured the world is something special, man.
I think that comes from like the punk aesthetic and the DIY aesthetic that's built into like, punk rock. The DIY aesthetic, meaning you know, do it yourself. And there's this community where, you know, you're helping each other. If this band wants to play, but they don't have an amp, and you help them out. And it's just built into the vibe of that music. And back then, a lot of times, I've talked about this a lot, and maybe I'll talk about it for the last time today. After that, I'll drop it.
It's forever recorded after today.
Yeah. So I don't need to say it anymore, because when you say negative things, they perpetuate, right? Oh, maybe I shouldn't say it, because then it'll be forever perpetuated. But you know what?
Just say it.
Because I'll say a lot of positive things to cancel this shit out.
Right.
A lot of bands used to get in fights over stupid shit, and it was nonstop. And bands fighting each other, bands fighting themselves, fans of bands fighting each other for the band. Maybe the bands love each other, but the fans of the bands fighting each other, causing the beef.
Really?
It was really there was some fucking small town mind shit going on. But we, as a band, Matala, ignored a lot of it. You know, we did have one moment where we had a conflict with an older band with similar name. But now we've grown so much past that. I mean, everyone's evolved into different positions and in supporting each other in such like a wholesome way.
Right. It's cool.
Actually, and I don't want to say names, because that would be bringing up old past things that happened.
Yeah, not necessary.
But they did happen. And we're just time traveling into the difference. We're bringing it up because we're saying, what's the difference between then and now?
Right.
And there's so many good things, right? And so now I just don't see people fighting. I don't see the bands fighting at all. They're just supporting each other. We're all embracing local culture like Chinchuli and buying each other's merch.
In its own evolution,
yeah.
Right?
It's like you buy X amount of their merch, you're gonna see it tenfold, man.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. And so when you see it tenfold, you grow. And so everyone's growing each other, at least for the rock scene. And big ups to the hip hop scene, because I see a lot of people making moves to try to do that for the hip hop scene. But if you want the same thing to happen, I'm saying you gotta love it, because it's a long road. You know, here we are now.
Right.
It was a long fucking time, and it comes from interest. It comes from learning and just, you know, setting your standards. Matala, when we were core, we just got out of high school and we had our first gig and we got stiffed at that gig. And me being the band leader, I felt so guilty going, damn, we didn't get paid when they promised to get paid. What do I need to do?
Right.
And I got advice from a couple local musicians. They said, yo, get your shit together, get a business license. So me at 18, I invested in a business license for the band, you know, so where you could legally take someone to court if you had an issue,
Right.
or you could legally invoice someone. You're taking account. So what should people do if they're actually really serious about their music? Treat it like a business, but don't lose the interest and passion that you had for it when it was just a hobby.
That's a fine line, though, man.
And it's a long road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy. It's easy to fall off that track of keeping it a passion, but also the business, because the business side of it gets headache, man.
Yeah.
You know, even just with this podcast alone, you know, I decided, okay, I want to pick up some sponsorships, you know, and turn it into a business.
Yeah.
That's a fucking headache. It was so much easier when it was just for fun, you know, and it's still for fun, but it was more so for fun then, because it was just like, I'm not getting.
That's when you'll realize who's really about it in your team. Because if they're willing to support that business and go through all those things with you and learn it with you, right?
Yeah.
In order to do what you want at the level that you want.
Right.
And we've done so many things, you know, we've been on a handful of tours, and maybe if you're in the States, you get to tour all the time because you can just hop up in a bus. But
for sure,
for us, we have to, you know,
I really love
raise money and
how the community is attacking the Asian market, though. You know, a bunch of bands went out to Japan. Yeah,
like maybe 3 or 4 bands went to Japan and did a full-on tour.
Yeah, I think even
under the same
4 or 5
booking agent as Chan, man.
Who's Chan?
Chan is, I'm obsessed with this band, Chan. Just
man, can we get some water? Thanks, bro.
How did that happen? I think Christian and Local Deluxe, maybe this is a story for them to tell, so I'll just keep it brief, but I think they met the booking agent when they went to see Chan themselves.
Okay.
And they established some kind of connection there. And, you know, they had that within them to not lose sight of, in the future, they want to do that.
Right.
So
thank you.
A year or so later, right, however long after that Chan concert, both them and Fat Tofu, both Local Deluxe and Fat Tofu went on tour. And even before them, I think Surrender the Thief did a full-on tour in Japan as well, under different management. So, yeah, man, people have balls right now.
Right.
Big balls.
I mean, it's but that's the best way to get your music exposed, right? Especially in this region. And I mean, it's not like rock's not a worldwide thing that people are listening to, right? Mm-hmm. So just the fact that you can take influences from the Pacific region, and they're thinking like, whoa, this is coming from a little island. Yeah. Maybe they're saying that. I don't know. Maybe that's just the Guam mindset in me, that everybody thinks like, oh shit, something special about this place because it's small. But I think it is noticeable if more and more, the fact that more and more bands from here are going to Japan or going to the Philippines or even other places in Southeast Asia, right?
You know that I did sound for that John Dink tour when they toured all of Cali up and down, right? A couple years ago. I think that was 2016, and I remember talking to either Frankie or John T about it, and after a while of touring, just going, man, I miss home, you know? It's great going on tour, but after a while, especially when you're riding in like, a van with everyone and looking out the window for
Hours.
Yeah, hours between venues, just going, okay, mall, road, desert, like,
Yeah.
repeat, right? Played a venue, desert, mall, some trees, desert, like,
Yeah.
fuck, I miss home. So when we were on the last leg of the tour coming back and we stopped in Hawaii, I was like, wow, this feels so great. It feels like, it reminds me of the island life of Guam again.
Right.
And going surfing every day. Got to go surfing, walk to Ala Moana, and just like there's a lot of people from Guam that work in the Ala Moana Center.
Okay.
And just have a cool, good vibe. And what was my point? I was like we were talking about Guam, the Guam scene, how different it is, and how you expect going out there to be some kind of like bigger thing,
Grand experience,
but it ends up being like a loop. At least for me, I know everyone on that tour had a different experience.
But you were doing something also, right? You were like completing.
I was also taking like online courses for my next degree for information science.
Right, so it was definitely monotonous. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like desert, gig, homework for me, man. I bought my iPad just to do homework. I bought the iPad Pro. How dorky is that? I bought the iPad Pro, the best one, so that I would have the capability to read so many pages without getting dizzy because the screen's bigger while I'm writing, going for like a 6-hour driving road trip.
Extravaganza.
Yeah. And I just like read the whole way.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess for a lot of people, that's the goal, right? To get into that sort of touring experience. Maybe it's not as comfortable as, maybe more super successful bands, but at the core of it, right? That's sort of what everybody aims for, is to.
That's true. And what is my point? Because I was going to spin it in a positive way.
Okay.
We're talking about Asia.
Right.
That is such an interesting, cost-effective way to go. Tour Philippines, tour Japan, tour Singapore, tour Asia. Try to go to...
You probably spend less money too.
And then go the other direction. Go to Australia or go to Korea, right? We're just like a hop and skip away. I just tweeted this like earlier today.
Yeah.
Cool thing about Guam is we're a hop and skip away from all these international, big name places that have their own distinct, different scenes. And we are at we're at a time period in Guam where we're forming our own distinct scenes,
100%,
which is a mishmash of all these other things that we're experiencing. And I always joke with one of my best friends, Hannah. She owns Good Looking Out. We always joke about this, that like, because both her and Jordan Hardy are like super Star Wars nerds, and so I always joke with them.
Hence,
like,
Binary Sunset.
Yeah. Not a lot of people know that, but Binary Sunset is one of the Star Wars titles of their songs.
The songs, right?
Yeah, when you're singing the tune.
When they're on Tatooine, when the Luke Skywalker scene, right?
And
when he was a kid or something like that.
Maybe.
I forget.
They always say it and then I zone out. But I'll joke back with them when my when it kicks back in my attention span, and I'll say how Guam is like Guam is kind of like Tatooine, where Guam is like that scene in Tatooine where you see everyone. It's truly a melting pot in that bar, and in the bar, what do you see there? What does that like Tatooine scene have?
I can't remember.
That's the famous like scene with all those
right. Okay.
You see music, man.
Right.
There's music in Tatooine. So we're like Tatooine. We got the music, we got the entertainment. There's a lot of it, and it's a melting pot.
Yeah, for sure, man. I really believe that right now Guam's going, you can call it a renaissance, but we're forming our personality of who the last generation was and what we grew up on, right? And our exposure to the internet and media and different kinds of music. now the personality of Guam is just like completely like coming to into mold. It's been molding, but now it's coming into shape. Right?
And Tatooine is a major. Sorry, harping on Star Wars again. But Tatooine's a major.
Sure? Are you sure you're not the Star Wars dork?
It's a major destination. I'm just a geek in general, so.
Me too.
We have it in our DNA, even if I'm not as geeky about it as my other friends.
Okay.
It's a major destination in Star Wars. You know, it's always where they're stopping by before they go on the
long trips.
Yeah, the longer trip. Yeah, you know, or their big, like the climax of before they do this, they stop in Tatooine, and this happened.
Right.
And you know, and Guam is like that. Guam can be a major key in the whole story of things if you let it. And you know what's one thing we need to stop saying is, even if people have so much pride in the island, when they introduce themselves in like pageants or artists that go out there, or maybe you see someone from Guam on like trying out for what America's Greatest, you know, one of those shows. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, I'm from the tiny island of Guam, or I'm from the small island of Guam. And Singapore is a small place.
Right.
And we're always talking to other people about, you know, you need to expand your mindset about how you see Guam. Maybe we also need to, maybe we haven't yet. We want to, so we talk about it a lot. But why do we keep saying, like, I come from the small island of Guam?
Right.
There's many other things about Guam. And the first thing I think about Guam is its food or its music for me.
Yeah.
I don't ever think about its size.
Right.
And if you think about Singapore, I don't ever think about its size. Most people don't even know Singapore is that small.
Right.
But Singapore's got almost like 6 million people.
Right.
You know? And it's, similar comparable size?
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's a good point. A good point. And just the way you speak about something can change the mindset of how you
change your own destiny.
Right. But we get caught up here.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to get caught up. But we still have that small town mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it's going away. People are becoming more acceptable.
Yeah.
But it's you can still see it even all over like social media. God, Twitter is horrible for that.
It's really hard.
Facebook is just as bad.
That. Yeah. So you have to make a decision for yourself, you know, to laser focus on what your goals are. And if you do, you know, I'm a product of that. So we're always trying to find out, well, how do we end up here? And it just comes from interest and are you paying attention? You know, focus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely important. And
surfing, right?
Balance, to be able to still push through even though things get hard or messy. And I only reference this podcast. This is the only thing that I've really you know, besides, I think this is the only thing that I've really pushed, that I've created. Like, oh shit, I think I can keep doing this.
I'm onto something.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's hard. It sucks right now, but why not? I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
Right. Or even when it's not fun, it's like, when I do it, it's like, oh shit, now I remember why.
Why, yeah.
Right.
And you just got to keep doing that. Yeah, keep doing it.
But, where were we going with that? Evolution. We were talking about the evolution of the music on Guam, right? So I guess now...
And it deals with Guam evolving.
Right.
And
it is evolving because now there's so much more different kinds of people here, right?
Yeah. Is there?
I believe so. And you can blame it on the military. You can blame it on capitalism. You can blame it on whatever. But there's something that attracts people to this place that people end up calling home. You know, and it's been happening for hundreds of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
These Filipino exiles would be exiled to a small island in Guam. They're like,
and then they stayed.
Shit, it's actually pretty chill here, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's been going here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain mentalities we have to like escape ourselves from in order for Guam to grow in certain ways. But you know, until then,
what do you feel that is?
Oh man, don't want to go into like
There's more
really
you can say.
The deep. I don't want to go like too deep
Yeah.
into specifics, but even just like what's considered, what's like the culture itself, right? We have to understand and recognize that culture here on Guam is changing. It's not changing for the bad. It's
just
we're
changing
developing this
both
new
ways.
There's a new culture that's sprouted
Mhm.
after I'd like to blame FestPac because everyone's like, oh shit.
But that's pretty recent.
Yeah, very, very recent.
Yeah.
You know, and but it's not a direct, the FestPac ain't a direct effect of why everything else is happening, but look how much art, or when I mention the personality of Guam, look how much it is more accentuated now.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe more people are embracing education. And this sounds either progressive or backwards to say, depending on which way you take it.
Yeah.
But education for a lot of families is not a priority, and it should be. And maybe there's an educational shift that is happening in culture, and it could stem from pride and wanting to know more about what it is to be.
Right.
I personally don't know. But I guess I'm saying it because I hope it is.
Right.
Because certainly for me, what facilitated all these changes and all this growth, it was the, learning. If you're willing to have interest and learn something new,
Right.
that will take you to a different place. Even if you're physically in the same place, it will change your world around you. Through art, through music, through culture, you'll discover the depth at which those things can bring.
Right.
Yeah. And it keeps giving, man.
But I feel like there's we're a generation that's being tugged left and right, in progressing and preserving, right? And what needs preservation and what needs progression.
I feel like this podcast is awesome, and we just need more of this because it forces us to have these conversations. Right? We're kind of stuck here. We got these mics, we got these cameras, and I'm sitting here, I'm kind of stuck to talk about this.
Right.
But in other instances, people can be so reactionary.
Right.
And one thing you say wrong that reveals that you don't think exactly 110% like them, they'll say, well, fuck you.
Right.
And then the conversation ends there. Yeah. And it's like, wait, but we have a lot to talk about.
You didn't even have to hear what I had to say.
Yeah.
Or why I'm thinking the way I do, right?
Yeah.
Maybe my upbringing or my background's a little different from.
Or we're listening to each other and we say we are, but we're not really, or maybe we're hearing each other,
right.
but we're not actually listening to each other. And so I feel like so we're being tugged in both directions. And there's a lot of civil rights movements going on.
Yeah, man. I call it the societal shift.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Guam is in its societal shift. I brought it up in the last podcast with
There's
Frank
a lot
and
of
Sarah.
things that resemble maybe the 60s. And
Yes.
I didn't live through the 60s.
Dude.
But we're going through...
Was I just telling that?
Right.
Did I tell you that?
Nostalgic
I was telling somebody
times,
that last
right?
night. I think it was last night.
Nostalgic times, embracing of like expanding different philosophies, looking at religion deeper and go, do I really subscribe to this, or are some things full of shit?
Right.
And if you're listening, I'm not saying I'm for or against any of it. Don't be lost on those words, but know that there is always deeper to go. And if you're religious and it brings you prosperity, then by all means, go for it. If you're not into that, maybe a more like secular thing going on, or if it's about, I don't know, if it sparks joy. Does it spark joy?
Right.
If it does, pursue it. But also pursue it with love, man, because a lot of people love what they do, but then they think everyone else should like think like them.
Yeah, and if you don't think like me, then maybe we shouldn't continue this conversation, because
that's the way it's treated a lot of times.
Because you'll irritate me.
Yeah,
I'm irritated right now.
Yeah.
Can you see it in my eyes?
Fuck you.
Yeah, man, and just the fact that
We're not actually irritated, guys.
yeah, right.
If you're listening,
we've gotten so caught up in commenting and being keyboard warriors about what this place needs, and nobody's actually doing anything.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's
Or there's a lot of people doing stuff, but they're silent. They just do it, right?
right,
If you're interested in it, just do it.
right.
Don't need to talk about it. And I'm not talking about anyone in particular. I always have to say that because when I say things like this,
Hey, we are in that world,
which
though,
is just
you
my
know?
perspective and observation, you know,
Right.
general, very general. I do have people that maybe they feel a certain way come out the woodwork and then they'll attack me, you know.
Yeah.
I've had really good friends, like I'll say something super general on Twitter and then they'll like come out and just attack me because they think it's about what they're talking about.
Whatever they believe in.
No, like my tweet was about like I just got done playing at the bar and this silly thing happened. So I said da 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 da,
Mhm.
and then fuck you, fucking talking about me. Like, no,
How dare you?
how dare I like say something super general with limited characters
Yeah.
and fuck, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the good thing about social media, but also the bad thing. And I feel like Guam Twitter, there's common themes that come up in every podcast.
Yeah.
And Guam Twitter is one of them.
I'm getting flashbacks to the Oni and Jed
Right.
episode where they're like, fuck Guam Twitter, fuck Guam Twitter. They're just chanting.
Yeah.
That shit's funny.
It's a common theme, though, I think, because everybody, it piques my interest to see literally people's minds battling. And I had a friend tell me, it's like, dude, none of that's real. Like none of that on
And they have to
on the internet
recognize-
is real. Once
Yeah.
they lose data or the internet goes to shit,
Yeah.
none of it ever existed.
And they have to recognize too that Guam Twitter is only a certain demographic. It's only a certain demographic.
Right.
And most of them are younger than me.
Yeah.
There's like, we were joking
Also
about
me.
this the other day. I was saying that like in a year or so, I'm going to be too old for Guam Twitter. I'm just going to have to like delete my Guam Twitter. Yeah, you don't want to be that dude on there just like commenting on everyone else's shit.
The
Who the fuck is this
the
guy?
50-year-old guy.
Hey, I'm the
Hey, I'm the lead guy for Matala.
who the fuck is that?
It's 2035.
Damn. Or is that going to be the next Facebook where everyone's moms and dads start using it so then it becomes uncool, right? Facebook is
Could
like
be.
the
Right,
least
right.
cool
It is.
social media. I love Facebook, but in terms of like if you were to rank like Instagram, Twitter, like Facebook would be at like the least cool one because like
Yeah, Facebook is less cool than WhatsApp. You know?
yeah, definitely. But it's still dope. Still dope. Shout out to Chan Homies group. That's the coolest Facebook group ever. Yeah.
You don't like Chamorro people from Guam Facebook group?
I've never seen it.
Man, that shit gets wild sometimes, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets wild.
Oh, okay. Actually, I have seen it.
It gets wild, dude.
That's where all the local memes come from.
right, right.
But you don't gotta like go there to see them because they go viral pretty
right,
fucking
right.
fast.
It ends up in Twitter.
Have you seen this guy? He took my bush cutter. All sorts of shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the home wrecker. This is a home wrecker right here. This is her photo.
Everyone on Guam. All of Jigo must know.
I just hate how reactionary Twitter has become.
Mm.
You know, and sensitive, very, very sensitive, dude. It's like, look at Laddie Stone Girl, right? And then look at Hateful Girl.
Yeah.
Poor girls, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're entitled to their own opinions, or at least Hateful Girl, right?
Yeah.
They're entitled to her own opinions, and why
If you had a bad,
why do we feel the need to chime in
I don't know. I sent
to
her a
other
nasty
people?
message. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I was one of those people that said, "Fuck that, dude." No, I'm just kidding. I didn't.
I guess for social media on Guam, I'm really trying to wrap my head about, you know, what's going on and what it's doing, what it's gonna do to society here, because we're already tight knit.
Mm-hmm.
We already
Hopefully-
see each other at Payless and fucking every concert and every
Hopefully it's just a pressure release. Hopefully it's like this subconscious thing where it's this other world. We put up all our shit on, we just dump it out. And then I was talking about that earlier today too, where, you know, people have their social media personas, you know, or they're like a social media troll.
right.
One of my good friends, Andrew Ferris, I love you, bro, but you're a fucking troll, dude, on Facebook. I love you, bro. But he's the biggest troll on Facebook. And he knows it. He knows it. And I always tell our other friends, like, yo, if you met this guy in real life though, you'll love this guy. He's super cool. He's super funny. And he'll cook for you. He cooks good. You know, this is a dude you could barbecue with. But on Facebook, he's a fucking troll. So there's something about these social media things that they just perpetuate this other side of us. So maybe, hopefully, it's just like this dumping ground where you dump your raw feelings into.
So that when we see each other in real life, it's like, oh, I don't really feel shit about you anymore.
But I don't know. Maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe not. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? Because I tweeted about it earlier.
I love tweeting stuff, man.
Yeah.
You know, whether it gets a reaction or not,
Yeah.
I feel like it sets my thoughts in stone, and that's why when my friend said, "No, dude, Twitter's like, it's
leave it.
it's non-existent, right? It's like it's not real." That's what he kept telling me, and I had a hard time sort of like wrapping my head around that idea, because you can print it out and you can show someone a piece of paper of the tweet and like, no, that's real. He's like, no, I just threw it away and it's not real. It's literally a thought.
Well, we're getting deep. What is reality? And a lot of reality and what goes on is it's almost like a social agreement. It's almost like we all agreed to act this way and do these things, right? What is money but a social agreement?
Right.
What is it? I mean, it's made out of these materials. That's what it is.
Right.
What is a guitar effects pedal? Why does it cost $2,000? I can just make it for $200, right? In parts. Well, this one's the original one. All these things are just like social agreements, right? So there's a duality, like it's all real or it's not real, you know, and
But
it's up to us to choose.
People are trying to make like Twitterverse the reality, right? That's some reality that's a reality that a lot of people, not even just Twitter, social media, that put themselves into.
Yeah.
Right? They log out of real life to go into social media life or the internet, the interweb world, and now they're that persona.
Right.
It's tricky, man, and I just think it's going to have a greater effect on our society here on Guam than it would on a larger scale, say the United States, right? Or a bigger state or a smaller state, whatever.
I think it's big fish in a small pond kind of thing. I think that people feel like it will, but just like all things, this too shall pass. Like
balance.
It just all fades. Like it'll get buried under all the other tweets,
right?
You know?
Yeah. Until it comes up on
the cloud can only handle so much, I think. Right. Man, I'm trying to think of this like word for the new type of internet that is evolving right now. And it's a world in which all of the apps are communicating, and we're experiencing it right now. The word is escaping me. Yeah, everything communicates. Everyone's got some kind of alphanumeric identification code. So like Boo Ada is Boo Ada. And it's good and bad because maybe in the near future, we won't need, you know how they're talking about like maybe we're going to have microchips. We won't need that because our presence, the more we use the internet, the more we are on the internet, the more there are attributes about us that are unique to us that I identify. Buada is using the internet right now, and he's searching up some Shure SM7B's microphones that he wants to purchase, right? And that...
How did you know?
Very specific information. How did I know?
I literally...
It goes somewhere.
I just emailed Darius from Sweetwater.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. But there's this... gosh, I wish I can remember the word. Is that something that we're able to look up?
Yeah, sure.
If you want to Google, gosh, what would you use? The new internet.
What is the new internet?
Just like Google some vocab words about
New internet evolution.
the evolution of internet. Oh, dude, I remembered it. The semantic web. It's called the semantic web,
Okay.
and that means that everything is start to communicate with each other, and
Like different businesses or apps or
Yeah.
identification.
could we search who invented the semantic web? Was it Berners-Lee? Righteous. But yeah, we're talking about an alternate reality on the internet.
Right.
I'm saying that that's happening, and Tim Berners-Lee, and he also invented. Did he also invent the World Wide Web, as we know it? Yo,
Damn, dude.
well,
Research.
I'm a information. I'm a librarian. So
Now that we know that.
it's my job. It's my job to know those things. Just kind of escapes me sometimes when you're trying to remember everything at once.
So everything. So you, no matter where you go, is this worldwide, or is this a country to country basis?
The more you read about it, the more you trip out, because it's like what did Elon Musk say? He said it's like harder to prove that we're not a simulation than to just accept that maybe we are. Shit like that. He
Yeah,
didn't.
right.
Maybe he didn't exactly say that, but he's tweeted it.
Right.
But the more I get into like studying about stuff like that, the more I'm like, whoa, that's a trip. You mean that there could be one boo Ada on the internet and it will forever be you.
That's my fingerprint, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Your digital fingerprint. Yeah. And at what point in the future do we just become like digital surrogates of our former selves, man? I'm trying.
Like uploading our consciousness into the internet, into the interweb, because it's recorded so much of our habits.
It seems like we're expanding our external abilities, right? Through these devices. External meaning, we can do all these things through the digital format,
Mm-hmm.
and they're outside of us.
Right.
But with everything communicating, enhancing our lives, we like these things and we're addicted to them.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do we cross the line? Because we're already going into AI, right? And like Elon Musk openly, repeatedly says that he fears AI. It could go into the wrong direction, like Terminator style, right?
Yeah,
where it
Sentinel
develops
style.
its own consciousness. And even Google had released information where they fed their AI books, right?
Yeah.
It read all the books, and they have this one AI machine or robot that reads the books and then it spits out its own poetry. And it came up with this really odd poem. Can we Google that one?
Sure.
We're putting you to task today, bro. I'm fucking sorry. But like one of the closing lines was like about how destructive humans were. And it's like, how the fuck
How do you know?
how the fuck does this machine know, man? About killing humans or something like that, man.
Right.
So that's one aspect, is the fear that when does this become its own collective consciousness? And when you read about the semantic web, you're going, whoa. We have AI and they're all communicating to each other. Yo, what does that resemble? It resembles like Terminator, man. Like life imitates art, or art imitates life. Which one?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a point where it's like, whoa, dude, we're crossing the line here. So we have all these external things that are enhancing our life digitally. We're going to start integrating them into our everyday life, or we already started with our phones, right?
Yeah. Try Google robot writes a poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's integrated into your phones.
So
Right,
when
right.
does it become
I think
part
it's-
of our own self or our own consciousness? Like a computer, right? If our mind is a computer, when do we get the ability to put in our own USB stick into our head and
Download.
yeah,
Like the Matrix.
yeah,
Right.
or Johnny Mnemonic, that old movie with Keanu Reeves. It wasn't a very popular movie,
Uh-huh.
but it really resembled that thing where they would like, hook up into but Matrix too,
Right.
where you hook up into the machine, man, and it's feeding you or controlling this like reality that
Right.
you're perceiving. Because everything, to ourselves, when we look at ourselves and we make observations, they look what is the word? It looks natural, right? Like versus man-made, which is a lot of symmetry, asymmetrical versus symmetrical,
Mhm.
or synthetic versus, what's the other word? Synthetic versus organic, right?
Mm-hmm.
At what point do we discover we can make things that really look organic? That's just a question to throw out there.
That's a very deep question.
Yeah.
I mean, take some mushrooms to answer that question.
Yeah. Man, I trip every day on not on mushrooms, but on my on my dorky ass on my guitar gear. I have this Fractal Axe-Fx 3, and this amp, well, it's not an amp. It's like it even has like a EQ profiler where you can feed it sounds, and it spits out like an EQ profile that sounds like other amps.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this thing called the Kemper profiling amp, where essentially you could like record your own amp into the system, and it spits out a profile that others can download on their Kemper profiling amp. And it's like you own that amp now. So if you had a really unique like Fender twin guitar amp and you wanted to play through that amp, it might be across the country, but they could download the IR, send it to you, you receive it, and you're playing it and you're feeling how it is,
Right.
So we have all this cool like external technology. When does that? And I'm not asking it to become a part of us. I'm just saying when. Because things are progressing at such an alarming pace. It might start with limbs, right? When people lose their limbs, and we already have like artificial limbs.
Right.
But at what point does it become, maybe money is a thing, cost effective to have like an artificial limb that responds to our thoughts?
Their thoughts.
Maybe things exist like that.
Don't they do that? And don't they have limbs that respond to
That's
like
true.
a nerve,
Yeah.
like the nerve endings or something? I'm not too sure how
At one
those limbs
point,
work.
does it become so cost effective to get something like that that everyone who's missing a limb just gets one of those? Or what if one day, I'm just throwing random fucking fucked up ideas out there. What if one day those artificial limbs get so badass and cheap that that people start
Cutting off their own.
Yeah, and they'll trade up for like a better synthetic artificial limb that responds faster. Because we're talking about earlier, we were talking about audio and bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
At what point did you start recording? Well, when it got cheap enough, man.
Right.
When it got affordable enough, or when I can make it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything is out there, right?
Got these sweet bionic legs. They just went on sale.
Check out these new legs, man.
Where's your real legs? Fucking cut my shit off. How was it? It was a good leg. But I like these new legs.
Hey, our friend Jerry got something new about him, guys. Can you tell what he replaced? I don't see anything, man. Is there something I can't see, man?
Oh man, bro, I gotta cut out of here. Let's
been
do
a
this
good time.
again.
Yeah.
Let's not wait. Let's not wait 2 or 3 years for you to come back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
We went super left field.
yeah, but I
Probably thought you were gonna talk about more Guam music or surf or some shit, and
I never,
talked about bionic limbs and shit.
bro. I never have expectations of the things that
Master Random. This is what it's about, man.
So thank you. Let's
Thank you.
let's do sooner than later, brother. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. And Episode 200's coming up. If you want more details on how to join us for the show, just let me know. DM me on any of the social media platforms, and we'll invite you to come on enjoy this. This is the first time we're doing this, and it's nerve-wracking a little bit, but it's going to be incredibly fucking fun.
Awesome.
And that's it. Patreon. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. Do you have anything to put out? Promote? Anything?
New Metallica EP coming. Probably some new pop rock stuff coming. New material by Never Dreamt coming.
Damn.
Sounds awesome.
You're doing a lot of things. Dude, we didn't even get into your production, man. Oh gosh, okay.
Next time.
Yeah, we're definitely doing this again.
I have a list, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if anything on the list sparks.
It sparked your joy.
Scott LaFleur, Bedrooms. I'm just like shouting out artists to check out. These are not artists that I produced this time. Check out everything that Jed's putting out under
he's amazing.
What is his Straight Up Music.
Straight Up Music, right.
Check out the new Micro Child. Wow. And check out all of RJ Uggin's beats, Nuga Jr. Check that out. And there's a shit ton of other stuff that has been released very recently. Don't be lazy. Take a look for yourself. Go Google some artists, and I'm sure they're shouting out other artists on there. But big shout out right now to Good Looking Out. Check out Good Looking Out for all your
over here in Agana.
Yeah.
I love how the heart of Agana is becoming the heart, literally.
Yeah.
It's beating here.
Yep. That's why that's a special shout out. It's just like changing the scene, little moves, right? It's that's one of those turning points that I feel is changing the scene for the better.
For sure. Yeah. I was talking to Hannah about it before she opened the store, and
she's so stoked to do it.
Fucking badass, dude.
Fucking badass, dude. Binary Sunset.
Binary Sunset. Shout out to them. Do not support. Do not support. Don't forget to rate the podcast if you enjoyed this podcast with Mr. Ryan Shook. And it'll be sooner than later, not 3 years later, that we're going to get him back on the show. And so, that being said and everything, it is the day before Liberation, and happy Liberation to you guys. I know it's contentious right now and what that means for a lot of different people here, but we're still living.
On Twitter.
Yeah, we're all alive. We're all breathing. There's nothing more but to be happy. Find your happiness. Find your peace. And that being said, I love you. Maddie B loves you. We got to cut out of here. See ya. Peace out. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast with Ryan Shook. I wasn't wrong, right? A little shout out to the sponsor at his Mortuary. They are a small family-owned, operated mortuary that has been serving this island community for over 45 years. They are big enough to serve, yet small enough to care. Contact Addis Mortuary at 477-1311 for more information on services and plans. Episode 200 coming up. Super excited. Huge milestone for the podcast, and I hope to see you there. DM me on any of the social media platforms for more information. Second or third. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast. Ratings and reviews on the Apple Podcast app help in various ways, and your rating and review can help so too. Patreon. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. Thank you so much to all our Patreon supporters, $5 and the $2 supporters. You mean the world to this show. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, Master Random, you, no, not me, but you, the listeners, are the baddest.